Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Open Metadata Community Meeting. We're going to get started here in just a second. We'll let people come in and get settled. If you could please let me know where you're calling in from. Excited to have you all here today. We have a full agenda that I'm looking forward to diving into, but let's make sure that everyone's here. We'll just give it a couple seconds for everyone to get settled, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I'm joining our meeting today from Los Angeles. So looking forward to everyone being here. Beautiful. Yes. Thanks everyone for calling in. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and get started. Uh, Welcome to the Open Metadata Community Meetup this month for September 2025. It was a great month for Open Metadata, so I'm excited to share some of those updates, and we have a lot to look forward to as Open Metadata progresses. So looking forward to getting some updates for you all on the latest in developments in Open Metadata and how you can leverage it to gain a better understanding of the data assets in your organization. We have a great agenda today, but a pretty full one. So I wanted to just dive right in. If this is your first Open Metadata Community Meeting, first welcome and thanks for being here. But we typically, or not typically, we always take the beginning of the meeting to go through the health of Open Metadata. So we'll be taking a look at some metrics that indicate where Open Metadata is at and how we've grown. After doing that quickly, we'll dive into two community spotlights that we have this month. I'm really excited to have with us today Nancy from Moniepoint and Antoine from Kansai Airport. So he was able to record for us, and we'll be able to see that recording shortly. Really looking forward to that. Before having Harsha here at Open Metadata introduce Open Metadata 1.10 and give a preview of all of the things that you'll be able to, or just some maybe of the things that you'll be able to do that are new in Open Metadata 1.10. And then we have a Mayor that'll be wrapping up specifically with one of those updates on how to be able to leverage Open Metadata and Google Drive together. Throughout our community meeting, you can see that chat there where people were people were responding with where they are calling in from, and thank you everyone for doing that. As you have any questions about today's meeting, please feel free to jump in that chat, and then we can, either address them as they come up, or certainly address them at the end of our call here today. So the Open Metadata community continues to grow. It's been really exciting to see. You can see some of the metrics that we have displayed since our last community meeting. One that I wanted to call out in particular is here, where we are monitoring the amount of people that we have both in our Meetup community and our X community. So the Meetup community just passed 4,000 members. And that's where we are hosting information, where you can find information not just about this community meeting, but we also have office hours every week. Every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, you can jump in, bring your Open Metadata environment, share it with us, and we can make sure that that is as easy for you to use as possible, as useful as it can be. And that's been a great experience to have that happen every week. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining that meetup community, and then also call out that there's more events than just these monthly community meetings happening there as well. And we'd love to have you in the office hours. So some of our community metrics in terms of code added to Open Metadata over since our last meetup and the amount of support posts. So here I wanted to call out that, the last week was one of the highest, if not maybe the highest ever in terms of new support posts in the span of 7 days. So that was really exciting to see that not only does open metadata continue to be healthy in terms of PRs added, new features added and refined here, but also people are hungry to make their open metadata environment better, understand it more, and we're seeing that in the open metadata community Slack frequently, especially last week. So thank you all for your questions. Please sure to be able, please, make sure to get in there and ask us if there's anything that you would like to see out of your open metadata that we can help with. Some more community metrics here. We had a peak, I was talking about that great week that we had last week. Overall, the trend, month over month continues to grow in that Slack community, and love to see that, right? So just really appreciate all of the conversations that are happening in there. Then we have a number of community contributions that happened since our last meetup. That's been exciting to see, and really looking forward to more contributions from the community. We have one of our community contributors here that I would like to jump into as well. So we have on the call with us Nancy that is here from Moniepoint. Nancy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. So we're going to have Nancy talk about some of her process into how she's found open metadata and how she's been able to contribute to our open source project here. So please, Nancy, if you're ready, please take it away.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, good evening, everyone. And it's evening from my end. It's really great to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. Okay, so before I share my screen, I'd like to give a brief on how I came across open metadata. So I've actually heard about open metadata before recently. I just knew it as a metadata management tool. So recently, my manager at work told me that they were looking to integrate a metadata management tool, and he needed me to do a feature comparison between Data Hub and Open Metadata. So I did a kind of breakdown on the different features that both tools had, and I just loved the features that Open Metadata offered, especially in terms of hosting it, having it self-hosted, the kind of features it had, especially the part of the data quality test. That was one of the things that got me really interested in it. So I went onto the GitHub of Open Metadata, and I'm going to show you now how I made my first contributions to Open Metadata. So sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so when I browse for the GitHub of Open Metadata, I came here, right? So the first things I usually check when I browse for this is I scroll down and I check the language distribution. So I noticed that most of the tools here, they are most of them are something I was not familiar with except Python. So, well, Python was here and I said, okay, let me try contributing. But then when I went to the issues, and I was interested in using the labels, right? So most times I usually use the labels. So I come here. So I was like, okay, maybe it would take a while before I get acquainted with the code structure and everything. So I was like, let me try the documentation aspects. So I filtered on the documentation label, and that brought up some issues, some open issues. And I chose one of them that I was interested in, and that took me to this. Okay, that took me to this one here. I linked it, so I'll just open it. So that took me to this issue. Now, on this issue, when I read the whole description and saw the images, actually, one thing I also love about open metadata is the issues are usually clear to understand, and you won't need much guidance to start work on them. So this was a really comprehensive issue. And then I saw this param entity as the problem. Now, when I saw this, I was kind of familiar with it because I had worked with Sphinx before. So it was similar to a tool called Sphinx, right? So I actually thought that Open Metadata used it at first when I saw something like this, and maybe it was just a rendering issue. So what I did next was I forked Open Metadata repo on my um on my GitHub, and then I went straight to cloning that repo on my local. So on my local, after cloning it, I went into VS Code, right? So coming onto VS Code, I searched for, so coming back, let me go back. So what I did was, because I usually use Control F a lot or Command F if you're using Mac when trying to do some contributions. I feel like it's easier to easily find what you're looking for. So what I did next was I just picked one phrase from here. So if I try opening here, something unique that would make me easily identify it. So let's say this, I copied it, came here, searched across the projects. So that brought me to the files that are involved. So when I came into the file, I made the necessary changes. So at first, I was still trying to use the usual Sphinx rendering, but I noticed it was not working until I noticed that the files had the .md file extension. That means it was marked down. So that was how I knew that all I needed to do was to do something, have just use backstrokes. So let me find this entity type. Yeah. So this was what needed to be changed. If you compare, you notice that what was there was param entity colon then entity type. So all I needed to do was put these backstrokes between entities, so it would then be rendered like this. Does have this gray um highlights around it. So when I was done, I did not just make a pull request after making those changes. I needed to confirm that those changes I made actually work fine or they are rendered properly. So after doing the whole building, because I needed to go through the, just in case you've not contributed to Open Metadata for the first time, another thing I miss is when you come to the GitHub, you need to go through the contributing. Okay, okay. Okay, let me go back. So this is the first thing you need when you come on Open Metadata GitHub. So you scroll down to the contributing guide. So here, so I right clicked and opened in another tab, and that brought me here. So I went through this. Another thing that is important is you need to build the code, right? You need to install all the dependencies if you want this to work well. So this was, I clicked this, and that brought me to this. So here, this is where you are going to install all the prerequisites and set up the project before you can be able to make your contribution, because any changes you are making, you need to test them properly before you make a pull request. So for me to test, I ran this command because this is for the documentation. And then that took me to this still loading. Right. Another issue you might have is trying to know the navigation to the page that you made changes to. So one thing I did was I looked at the progression of these files, that's the paths, rather the paths. So this is showing v1.10.x. Looks hyphen snapshots. So that one, let's say I do this instead, right? So come in here. This is just a common error that comes up sometimes. So can write something like 1.9.x SDK. You notice this SDK Python API hyphen reference. So I typed all that API hyphen reference. And then ometa underscore API. Now there's an issue with this underscore. If I type this and run it, okay. So this will not work. It's not finding the page. So if you see underscore in the file name, you have to change it to hyphen when you're trying to impute it here, when trying to find the page. So instead of underscore, I will change this to hyphen. And that brings us to the page. So if I want to search for that entity type, you will notice that that entity that I talked about, that backstroke, that one that had that backstroke, that is what is here. So you notice that it's now rendered here because that was a markdown file. So this issue, there were several files that had that same problem. So I worked on all the files, ensuring that instead of that column param word, I used the backstrokes instead. So that made it to be properly rendered. And that is what we have currently in the API documentation today. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, thanks for showing us that. And thank you not only for your contributions, but showing us testing as well. I think that that's a good reminder for us all on the call, definitely myself included. Don't just submit a pull request without out testing. That was great. A great reminder. One that I need to not just hear but listen to. So I appreciate that. And then if I could have you for just a couple more seconds, Nancy, I had a question about you were talking about your manager wanted you to investigate different data governance tools. You were able to find open metadata through that. If you could estimate about how long was it between, when you got that project to when you had code um, merged into open metadata, kind of that timeline between, receiving that and then getting your contributions into the code base.
Okay, so that's working on that project, that took a while because I had a lot of it was more like it, let's say more like a personal project, was something I was doing outside work. So I had other things to do with work.
Mhm.
So that took a while for me to complete the documents. I think that should be weeks. But from when I completed the document to when I made my first contribution, I would say between 1 or 2 weeks. And that was because I had some sleepless nights,
Mhm.
staying up late beyond work hours to do my contribution. So yeah, it did not actually take time. Yes, it didn't take time.
Yeah, and I think with your help here and showing kind of your process, again, appreciate you taking that time and taking those weeks. But now seeing you walk through it, hopefully, new people that are coming into open metadata and looking to improve the documentation or improve open metadata in other areas, maybe it can take even less time, right? I think you showed some things here that some shortcuts, and it was really great to see that your contribution process. So. Thanks again, Nancy, and we really appreciate not only the code that you've added, but that walkthrough is really helpful to see your process. I hope that I
Thank you.
can mirror it though, as I mentioned.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thanks again, Nancy. We have another community spotlight coming up. This is from one of our community members in Japan, which is really exciting, but also really late his time. So fortunately for us, he was able to record his presentation. I've already been able to steal a couple glances at it, and I'm really excited for you all to see. So I am going to start sharing that video file now.
Hello everyone, I'm recording this today from Japan as it's a little bit hard for me to attend due to the different time zone, but I'm very excited to show you a short presentation on open metadata in my company, how we implemented it, why, and the few benefits we already have in a few short weeks. Uh, so let me first talk a little bit about the context. So I work for Kansai Airport, which is a company based in Japan in the Kansai region, operating 3 airports, totaling about 50 million passengers per year. So it's quite large airports. And our business is covering 3 areas mostly. First, the operation of the airport, so the service to the passengers, the service to the plane, the ground handling, the security, etc. Second part would be the investment, so building the airport, building the runway, building the passenger terminals, implementing the installation of equipment, etc., etc. And finally, the commercial revenues. So it would be retail, it would be real estate, it can be also our commercial relationship with airlines, and so on. In our company, we are traditionally a Japanese company, and we were a public company, public servants, maybe 10 years ago, and we are ongoing a digital transformation. So I don't know if you have this image of the public servants in your own country, but in Japan, the culture has not been very forward-thinking in terms of digital transformation. You have this image of the government retiring the floppy drive only a few years ago. So we are really willing to give in all our energy to the digital transformation, but we are starting a little bit late, and some of our colleagues are not very familiar with data and with the modern digital tools. So me, I'm Antoine. I'm working as the data innovation manager at Kansai Airport. So I lead a team who handle the digital transformation, but particularly the data platform. And that's why we introduced open metadata. For this data platform, we have a tech stack that is quite classic, I guess. We have Google Cloud Storage, mostly a Google Cloud Platform shop, using BigQuery as our data warehouse, dbt for our transformations. But we use Power BI for dashboarding. Today, dashboards are really a main feature, a main data product we offer our users. It really helps the executives and most of people to really bring business value from our data. The issue is it was hard for business users to see beyond the dashboard. So what's beyond the dashboard? Those dashboards are in Power BI and they are kind of separated from our GCP hosted data platform. So the real big question was where the data I see in my dashboards come from. Also, the business definition. In our business domain, we have the question, what is a passenger, for example? A passenger, depending on who you ask, it could be simply whoever rides the plane, including the crew, including the infants, including anybody who's actually on the plane. But some people will not count the crew. Some people will count the transit passenger or the transfer passenger differently. Some people would not count infants as they are not generating revenue passenger. So there are some different definitions about this business metric. And we align the way we see this metric thanks to OpenMetadata. Then there is an issue of data quality. Is the data correct? Is the data up to date? Has it been updated as planned? Finally, there are two more points, which are who owns the data. For any questions, for any contact, who owns the data was not clear to the business user before OpenMetadata. And finally, we have a specific problem here. It's about access control. Thanks to the organization by domain and owners and so on, with OpenMetadata, we are able to delegate the decisions on access control to the business owners and to the data owners, which really facilitates the work of my team. So all those questions have been solved by OpenMetadata, and we realized that we needed a platform, an OpenMetadata platform, a data catalog, something to do our data quality tests, something to collaborate on the data. And why we choose OpenMetadata? First, it's that it's pretty, I would call it a plug and play solution. So it really goes on each of our different data platform elements, whether it's our data warehouse in GCP or a data visualization platform in Power BI. It's really easy to just plug it, bring in the metadata and start working straight away. I think it took us a couple of days to just, set up a Docker deployment of OpenMetadata, just connect our main data sources, and we could have like hundreds of data warehouse tables and maybe 50 dashboards on Power BI, really plugged in OpenMetadata and ready to tackle the actual job and the actual challenge of an OpenMetadata platform, which is business adoption. In this regard, we liked the I would call it business friendliness of OpenMetadata platform. We think there is the right level of information. It's not too confusing for business users who are not necessarily familiar with data and the very minute details of metadata management. So it makes for an easy onboarding of our business users. Finally, the two last points are really connected, but there is good documentation for the deployment, for the connectors, also the playbooks about the administrator or the user of OpenMetadata, what is expected of him. So it's really easy to follow along and start the implementation very efficiently. And finally, and that's why I'm happy to talk today, there is a great community. There is very active support on Slack. I thank Nick to let me talk today, by the way. And it's really easy to just spin in the containers, start working. Any trouble you may have will be solved by the community. And it's really easy to demonstrate to your executive the value of the platform. It's open source, so there is actually very little cost to adoption at the beginning. And it's really bringing value quickly to a data team. So to conclude the presentation, I will just tell you a little bit about our next steps. We are handling this roadmap mostly with one person dedicated about a third of his time to OpenMetadata, and we plan to follow this roadmap. So the proof of concept was mostly, deploying the containers, trying to tie it all together, and that happened in July. Then we will onboard in August. We are doing that in August and September, onboard the data leaders and do some workshop to really get the buy-in, get the needs, get the involvement of the business. In October, we plan to release the solution for all the company of Kansai Airport and implement the access control from OpenMetadata to our data warehouse and dashboards. In November, we'll set up the data quality alerting for our tier 1 data assets, and release also for our group companies, which are subsidiary of our companies, will also join us on the tool. In December, we'll have a little pause, look back, assess where we're at, assess any gap in terms of data maturity, and start 2026 with the objective to introduce AI agent interface. It's not something we have any detailed plan yet, but we think first we need to have the good foundation, the good basis with our metadata properly defined, governed, and fresh, and then we can start to introduce an AI agent interface. Okay, that's it for my presentation. I'm not so sure, it's hard to talk to a recording, so I'm not sure if it was all right, but I hope this presentation brought you something. Really, my main message is Open Metadata is really easy to spin on. It's really quick to have business value results that your stakeholder will see in a couple of weeks or couple of months. So I really recommend to anybody in my position to give it a try. And I guess it might be the case to most of you here today. But yeah, great solution. And thanks again to the community for the opportunity. Thanks, bye.
Great. Thanks, Antoine. It was great to hear that story of digital transformation. We were able to, have that recording shared with us. So if you're interested in talking about your digital transformation, regardless of your time zone, now, we would love to have you on these community meetups. We would love to have you, but if you can, like Antoine mentioned, floppy drives in your digital transformation, going from floppy drives up to open metadata. We don't want to have you. I think we need to have you, right? So that was great to hear that process and their transformation there. But let's continue going with our meetup. Harsha, it's great to have you. Let's talk about open metadata 1.10.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Antoine, that was an awesome presentation. Now, let me go back a little bit. It feels like yesterday we released 1.9 and 1.10 coming along. Wednesday next week, September 30th is the release date, so we're excited about it. Not going to touch the entire feature list. It's humongous, but we're going to talk about a few important things. Now, I'm going to take all the way back to where we started, right? So what is open metadata? What schema first means? When we started open metadata, we noticed there are no standardizations around metadata itself. Like if you have using an existing catalog at that time, there used to be key value pairs. There used to be very proprietary schemas. There is no open source, open specifications for metadata. That was our motivation to start open metadata to start off. We need to solve that problem. So we came up with JSON schema, standardized vocabulary around metadata. What is standardized vocabulary? How do you define a table in an organization? What should table contain? Table should contain a name. Maybe it should contain a description. Maybe it should contain columns. How do you structure it so that across the organizations, they're not reimagining how to model the metadata? So that's what we brought as the first step towards, as the foundational steps towards making metadata available in an organization. So we build extensive JSON schemas. On top of my head, I think there are around 400 schemas to manage your metadata in a standardized format. All of these are published, available in open source for anyone to look at. Now, what did this give us? This gave us a standardized vocabulary that can be changed from company A to company B. The table definition remains the same. From within the company's teams, how do you model your metadata remains the same. And on top of that, we built APIs. These APIs are actually generated out of JSON schemas in itself. That's the power of JSON schema. So what we do is standardize the schemas. That JSON schema becomes our server-side API code. Same schemas generates our Python code, which is your connectors, and even including the OpenMetadata UI, all the fancy UI that you see generated through the JSON schema. So one schema to rule them all, right? That's a great start. So we build APIs, extensive, very well documented. I think Nancy was showing earlier about the documentation. Even that documentation is coming from JSON schema itself. So this is the power of OpenMetadata, power of JSON schema. So now, since we have the REST APIs, we built all of our connectors using this JSON schemas. So that's one of the reasons we're able to ship almost 100 unique connectors across to cover across your data infrastructure. But we all know metadata not going to sit in one of those 100 data services that you may have. People use files, people use other mechanisms to store maybe a proprietary infrastructure. They want to bring their metadata into OpenMetadata. How would they do it? So initially we have OpenMetadata APIs that we all use. We give that REST APIs. That's great, very well documented REST APIs. Then, hey, community comes and asks, hey, it would be easy for me to, if you can provide an SDK. So we use the same JSON schema and open APIs to generate SDKs in Java as well as in Python. These are all great. Has been a lot of use from our community, which is, we get a lot of questions and queries around the APIs. We thought, hey, but these SDKs are also close to how the REST APIs operate. For example, I want to update a table with a tag or an owner. You need to kind of understand, hey, you need to do a patch. In some cases, I want to do put. So you're kind of understanding the REST API or the nomenclature, not necessarily purely an SDK person. So that's what we want to solve. So we want to kind of take away the underlying details of REST APIs and give you much more easy to use. What we have developed here is Java, a Fluent-like API. And if you're familiar with Java, there is Fluent API, which chains operations and makes it really easy for the users, for the developers to use the metadata. So let me showcase some examples of that. I'm going to share my editor as well so that we can have a side-by-side. All right. Hopefully you can see both my screens, both my windows rather.
Yes.
All right. So let me go and show what we used to have. This is our example of Java SDK. I'm going to showcase, for example, how do you build a client? How do you get columns? These are all kind of related to, if you're familiar with any of the OpenMetadata, these are all our requests written in JSON schema, kind of translated into Java. This is our generated code that you're using directly, right? But where we want to get to, this is great, this is awesome, but where we want to get to make it really, really easy, really understanding how we structure the APIs. So now on my right side, you can see in my IntelliJ a code. So what you need is your server URL, your token, could be your bot token, could be your personal access token. Just within 2 lines, you'll be able to kind of connect to that and create a client. And out of that, I'm going to go and create, using builders, how do I create a database service? A simple name, host port, username, password, without a verbosity of the previous JSON schema generated APIs. We came into really simple ones. From here onwards, all I need to do is once I create the build, I need to call create. That creates my database service. And then database schema, finally a table, right? Just do the builder pattern, I'll call the create, and that's it. Now, previously when we do, that's great, creation is simple. When we do updates, often you want to kind of fetch all your tables. Maybe you want to kind of take a look at some of the data inside the tables and apply certain tags, ownership, other properties that you want to do, right? That used to be a little more kind of confusing from a user's point of view. Hey, when do I use post versus when do I use to patch? So we take away all of that guessing work for you, and we make it really simple. So there's an existing table. Within a single line, I was able to call the client tables get by name using my fully qualified name and update the description and also add a tag and just call save. That's all you need to do. You don't need to worry about, hey, is it doing a patch? Is it doing a post? Is it doing what are the HTTP methods that you need to do? I want to showcase some more interesting things like, glossaries, for example. One of the commonly asked things, hey, how do I export my glossaries? I want to import my glossaries. I have it in my CSV file. I want to do automatically through my CI/CD to update it. So all of that becomes now easy, right? So you just call the glossaries. You want to import CSV and just call the glossary name. It will import. You also have a dry run and everything else and execute. And also, even cooler thing here is we added async APIs for import and export because our users are importing tens of thousands of assets at one time. It takes time. Your load balancer may be having a shorter time span that may time out. So we built an async API in the REST itself. You send the payload, it will update it and notify through a WebSocket once it's done. And you see this in UI today itself. Now, how do I do that in the API in itself? So you can actually do an export CSV, listen for a WebSocket, and on complete, you can just display all of this data. Again, few lines instead of hundreds of lines coding this up with the new SDK. Let me run quickly, and so that you get a glimpse of it. So I have a local host running. So we are creating an updated table. We did an exported glossary. We did an import. We also run an async. All this in a few lines of code, nicely organized to the Fluent API. So this changes not only coming to the Java, but also to our Python. So similar to what we have shown here, similar kind of mechanism, really simple, really easy. Now I'm going to showcase what we used to do previously in our existing Python examples. For example, I want to update a description. So as a client or a user of this API or SDK, I need to be able to fetch an entity. I need to make sure that it is decopied because we need to kind of create a new object. We need to set the description. Then we need to remember to make sure that it is a patch call and send both what is the entity type, what is the entity, the original entity, and the modified entity, so that it can actually internally do a JSON diff and supply it. From there, all the way to we did all this is I created a table and I'm updating description to this table start update. That's it. You don't need to worry about, hey, do I need to patch? Do you need to copy? Do you need to deep copy? All of the essential inner details of the work is abstracted away and made you much more easier to kind of deploy this. Few more examples. We just talked about list, creation and everything else. There are more things like this, right? I want to find by name, table start find by name. You don't need to, again, really simple API. I want to find the table. I want to include owners, include tags, and all the other fields that I want to fetch. By default, we don't give you all the fields, but I want to get, for this tables, I want to get domains. I want to get my owners. I only want those fields. It will come really nicely. And similar to here, like able to kind of delete and confirm. This is again an ability to not just call the delete, but saying that, hey, yes to delete kind of things, all nicely chained. Gives really easy, we believe will help you kind of get to shipping your metadata, reading your metadata really simple. I hope you will be able to use this API really well and give us feedback. This will be shipping along with our 1.10 release. I think I'm going to jump into quickly into other features that we are shipping. All right, so lineage improvements. We're going to show today is impact analysis. These are existing 1.9.10 release, I guess 1.9.10 rather. So in this release, in the previous release as well, you always had an option to export this, the lineage returns into CSV for any impact analysis that you want to do offline. So what is impact analysis? I'm sitting in customers table. I want to change my schema. I want to change certain details. Will that impact any of my downstream users? Will I break any pipelines downstream? Will I break any dashboards? So that's where the lineage at its best for you to give all of these details. You already have a really nice visualization to kind of, hey, I want to look at customer ID, how it's flowing. If I change customer underscore ID name to something else, will that impact anyone else? The answer is simple. Here it's new view. But often the case that you need to give this data to someone else, you want to do offline, you have a nice way of exporting this lineage as a CSV or also an image. What we are going about here in upcoming release is you also have impact analysis right here in this in the product itself. You can see a nice table format with all the details of what is a downstream. I have 50 downstream and 50 upstream. What level is this particular nodes are there? What is the node depth? Who are the owners, if there are owners? Who are the tiers and tags? Not only that, this is the table level, this is the asset level, but I'm more interested in column level. So I can actually select column level and see again the same thing that I'm looking at, which columns are connected. Even though I have 50 downstream, maybe they are not actually reading all of my columns. Exactly, I'm looking at column 0, who it impacts if I change it. So you get very fine-tuned details right here. Then you can also search based on, I don't want all of this data, I want to look at specific assets, specific columns. You can also filter by the search right here. And as always, you can also download this data for, again, sharing with your colleagues or whatnot for offline analysis. All of this is right here and in upcoming release. I'm going to jump quickly into, I think, in the spirit of what Antonio was saying, hey, OpenMeta was really simple to get to up and running. We want to be, that's our foundation principle, right? So how do we make it's really easy for data teams to get it up and running, get the mileage out of it, get the value out of it. One of the questions that we get often in our support classes, we have extensive documentation is, they start with basic authentication. Hey, my team uses Okta, my company uses Google. How do I enable SSO? So if you go to the docs, enable security, there's huge amount of documentation written for it. But we also want to make it easy, right? So how do I actually turn this on even easier than what it is? We introduced SSO directly in the UI, in the settings. You can go to SSO here. Actually, let me go to my local host. It'll be easier. Settings, SSO. So you can get all this. I'm in my local host with the basic authentication. From basic authentication, I can move on to any of these providers that I have. Right? We have pretty much every SSO covered. Custom OIDC covers everything else. On top of that, we cover all the popular SSOs. So if I want to go to Google, I can just go click on configure. I get all of these details through to our form, documentation in line. You need to go to any different places to figure out. All of these details are nicely directed here. You should be able to kind of get up and running and save it. Once you save, restart your server. Now from basic authentication, you turn into Google SSO. I can go on and on. There are a lot more interesting features, but I want to be mindful of time and give them some time to talk about our another new feature. Before my jumps in, I want to kind of give context to it, right? So our goal always has been extract the metadata wherever it is, right? It could be in your APIs, it could be in your databases, in your ML models, it could be maybe you're storing in your search indexes like Elastic or OpenSearch. We are also adding drives because we realize that metadata could be in your files, maybe you're storing in CSV. We often get questions like, hey, my business users are using this Google Sheets to build amazing dashboards. Can we get that metadata? So that's our answer. That's a feature that we are shipping right now. I think Maya is going to go talk about more in details.
Sure. Thanks, Harsha, for that intro. So as Harsha mentioned that we will be now shipping the Google Drive as well. I'll do a quick demo of how you can set this up. So when I go to settings to my services, now you will see this new option of drives. Um and let me click on that. I already have some configured, but let's just click on add new service. So here you see option to choose Google Drive, or we also allow you to create your own custom connector for specific to Drive service. But for now, let's just choose Google Drive. Let me give a sample name. And here you can fill out all the information about your existing or your Google account that you want to configure with. Uh, I've already done this to save some time. So I have this demo service, drive service created. Now here you can already see that I have all my directories ingested, files, some spreadsheets. Uh, so let's take a look at one of the examples. So I have this analytics dashboard Google Sheet available in my drive, and it has a few sheets as well. And there is this data worksheet which has a lot of data, and based on this data, there are some dashboards created in the other sheets. So let's just see how this looks in Collate. So I see this analytical dashboard here. I see all the sheets available. So data was the main where we have the actual data. And you can see that we are able to infer the data types of these columns as well. Um, and you have the ability to assign domains, owners, tiers, what you can do with other data assets available in OpenMetadata. Uh, Now, it is not limited to spreadsheets, but it also covers other types of files as well. For example, here I have my demo folder, and within that demo folder, I have a PPT on Apache Ranger and some sales quotation document as well. So if I go back to the service, I have this demo directory, and you'll see that other files which were present in my directory are available as well. Of course, there is no column information because these are just slides and Google Sheet. But you can definitely use them into for creating lineage. Uh, so for that, I have another example. So, okay, now you can also search for your Google Sheets and documents from the Explore page as well. So I have this another spreadsheet and it contains the data about customer analysis. Now, how you can make use of the spreadsheet in lineage is let's say I have some process which populates the data within this spreadsheet from the customer table available in Redshift, and there is another API endpoint from which I'm combining the data to the table and I'm putting it all into this customer analysis dashboard. And finally, the club data available is being used uh, for preparing Power BI dashboards as well. Now, before, when we did not support the Google Sheet as a service, uh, your lineage would have been broken. Uh, there would have been no way of connecting this customers table to the Power BI. Of course, you can connect it directly, but then it won't represent the true nature of the flow of the data. So this also allows you to see the true representation of your lineage flow if you are using Google Sheets or any other types of files that are available in your Google Drive. That would conclude my demo. I'll pass it back to Nick.
And thanks for that, Mayor. It was a great presentation. Both Harsha and Mayor, a lot coming in Open Metadata 1.10. It was great to get a preview of that. So we did have some time for Q&A. Now, one of the questions that I saw is that, Harsha, you covered both API updates and lineage updates. A question that we had is there an API for pulling lineage information, or would you have to go to the database itself?
Yeah, so we do not recommend anyone going to database. We worked hard to, talk about APIs, build all of everything that we do, either UI or the connectors or anything else is driven through the API. So whatever you're doing in UI and saying that, hey, can it be done through the APIs? The answer is always yes. For lineage, we have APIs. We just talked about SDKs. If you want to use SDK, we can also have that as well.
Excellent. Thank
And
you.
on that topic, before we go further down, so I want to kind of showcase the answer right here in your everyone's instance. So if you're up and running, sorry, just quickly share my screen, is you have a question mark here and you have this API. For every instance, you're up and running your laptop, your Dockers or whatnot, you have all these APIs right here. Search for lineage, you will find it. An example of how to get the lineage and everything else, including export lineage and all the options that we are talking about.
Excellent. And a question that I had that's related to that. So you said those, SDKs updates are coming soon. It was that example that you showed was very, it was very readable. Like I think
Yeah.
that was a very noticeable improvement. Is that an example that, when those updates are available, that example that you showed, would that be available for us as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we probably may not be doing on the same day, but there is a huge docs improvements coming in from the API listing perspective. So we go through kind of every step of the way. Hey, how do I create database services? How do I add a table? Once I have a table, how do I find it? How do I update the information? All of those examples will be documented and available in our docs soon.
Excellent. Excellent. And then we had, a lot more questions on lineage. So thank you all for getting your questions in. We had some questions about, like the roadmap for a lineage. Is there anything that you can, talk about for the near future there?
I think the improvements that we are showing, there are improvements coming in that we are not ready to show right away in this call about the UI improvements. How do I actually visually even more clearer and understand the lineage? Obviously, you have impact analysis. Other than that, we have pretty much every coverage that we can think of. If you have a connector that doesn't have, please bring it in. We always add and increase the coverage for out-of-the-box support for all of these things.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks
I
for
think,
thanks
sorry,
for
to double check, there was a question came in, is the lineage roadmap for other file storage system like SharePoint, or is Google Drive or custom connector for the near future? So we want to kind of ship Google Drive first, and for every service that we ship, there is always a custom connector option. SharePoint is obviously one of the popular ones, so we're going to work towards that in the upcoming releases.
Excellent. So it looks like we're at the top of the hour here. Thank you all for attending. Thank you to our community for allowing us to share this information with you, and a special thanks to Nancy and Antoine for being able to share some of their particular experiences with Open Metadata. It's great to have you all here. Looking forward to getting you more information about Open Metadata as it becomes available, getting you Open Metadata 1.10 as well. I'm really excited to be able to share Open Metadata with you all. One of the things that I wanted to mention is, we're having that conversation, as I mentioned last week, was a particularly busy week for us on Slack. You can find the URL to that Slack. I just pasted it in our chat. And then I wanted to, before we go, I also wanted to share another link for you all as well. Next month, we will not be having our traditional Open Metadata meetup. Really excited to share that we are going to be trying something new and something really exciting for us. As you can see on my screen, and I also pasted it in our chat, next month we will be hosting Collate Reimagine, where we'll be taking a more of an AI-focused look at the future of open metadata and the future of Collate. So any of your questions that you had, we saw Antoine is really looking for 2026 to be the year that they start to consider and adopt AI agents in their organization. We're seeing that for a lot of people across our open metadata community as well. So wanted to call that out for next month. That'll be October 22nd. At 9 Pacific time, we'll be talking about how we envision, data and metadata, how we envision that pairing with AI and agents in the future. So really looking forward to that. It sounds like we have some people that are excited for it as well. But that would be our meetup for this month. For September, really excited about Open Metadata 1.10. Excited for you all to get your hands on it in that APIs. But until then, please let us know in that Slack if you have any questions or if there's anything that you would like to see from us. And looking forward to seeing you all at Collate Reimagine as well. Thank you all for attending today.